Right. You just about to go live.
Okay.
Live.
Wendy's there, I think. Wendy Pereira.
Live, Dave.
Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. Councillor Dave Stewart, leader of the Isle of Wight Council here, and this is the cabinet meeting for today, which is the 8th of October 2020. As you can see, we have a full cabinet. We have Gary Peace, Ian Ward from the Transport, Wayne on events and business, Brian Tyndall, who is our lead now on finance and resources, Paul Brading, who will be dealing with the educational matters this evening, Steve Hastings, who will be dealing with the environmental issues, Claire Mosdell, who is dealing with the public health aspects and other areas, Stuart Hutchinson, who will give us a strategic update on finance and COVID, and Barry Abraham, our lead member for housing, who will be dealing with the housing paper this evening. Just remind everybody that when you're not speaking, if you could turn your microphones off, although don't do it just for the moment, because when you need to speak, it will keep it clear. However, for the purpose of item 1, which is the minutes, I just wish to confirm that you're happy this is a true and accurate record. I look for somebody to nominate and second that. Councillor Tyndall, yes?
Yes, I'll do that. Thank you.
Seconded by Councillor Whittle, yes?
Yes,
Yep.
second.
And just indicate verbally, members, that you're happy with that. Are we all agreed?
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you very much. Now, if you could switch your microphones off, I'll move to item 2. Item 2 on the agenda is declarations of interest. Is there any members got a declaration of interest other than is declared on their normal members' interest? And I know there's an item on dogs, so I don't know if that affects it. Councillor Mosdell.
Yes, I have a dog. I have 3 dogs, and I consider them a member of my family.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, I too am a dog owner.
Thank you. Councillor Ward? No, you're fine. Councillor Tyndall?
I'm a dog owner as well.
Okay. Councillor Peace?
Well, whilst we're playing this one, yes, I'm a dog owner as well.
Okay, fine. Any other members who are dog owners that haven't declared? Apart from myself, because I am also. So we have a mixed bunch on the cabinet this evening. That's good. That relates particularly to the orders that's coming in on public protection order. We'll move now then to item 3, which is public questions. We've had no questions notified from the public, and because we have to have these a certain time in advance, we'll move straight on to Chairman's announcements. I've got 3 announcements to date today. First of all, I want to confirm that Councillor Ward, Councillor Hastings and I had a meeting with the leader of Portsmouth City Council and the chairman of Whitelink regarding proposals to implement a clean air zone through Portsmouth, which will have financial and economic implications for island residents and island businesses and island visitors. The dialogue continues, and I anticipate a meeting with DEFRA in due course to A, support the principle of a clean air zone, and B, to discuss how we can mitigate the potential financial impact. Second item is that I've been holding meetings with the fire service regarding their response to COVID-19 in preparation for an inspection by Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Fire and Police, and that'll be the national inspection body at the end of this month. And thirdly, in my capacity of chair of the Hampshire Police and Crime Panel, I hosted a presentation by our Chief Constable on her strategy and operational response to COVID-19 for Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, and I was reassured that the police continue to approach this responsibility with an engage, explain, and where necessary, enforcement approach to keep our community safe. And that's all my announcements at this action. So I'll now move to item 5, which is approval of the housing strategy, which is contained within the cabinet papers. And I asked Councillor Abraham if he would introduce the item, please.
Thank you, Leader. I have waiting for the live.
Yeah, just give it a few seconds.
Right.
You're live.
There we are. The island has not had an adopted housing strategy since 2012. A new draft housing strategy has been developed and it is proposed for adoption to support all housing service areas and partner activities on the island. It recognises the unique environment and challenges of the island and references the need for a special case in regard to the total number of homes required each year. However, this specific issue lies within the domain of the island planning strategy, and to be clear, the outcomes of the housing strategy seeks to include increasing housing choice for island families, meeting the specific needs of older and disabled residents, tackling homelessness and delivering more affordable homes. The latter is essential as a quarter of all island households who struggle to accommodate themselves in the current housing market and need a safe, warm, affordable home for their well-being, both now and in the future. In the background is during the development of the draft housing strategy over the last 18 months, several conferences have taken place with different departments, housing associations and other stakeholders, including town and parish councils. A public consultation has taken place and a full needs survey with every household on the island being written to by the leader to ascertain their current and future needs. And you probably remember doing that, leader. All these responses have been considered, and the draft housing strategy has gone through a number of iterations as a result. It has been further updated to take account of the impacts of the pandemic on our communities, including a six-fold increase in homeless presentations, and identifies the contribution housing can make to the planned recovery from the pandemic and the wider regeneration of the island. And the aims. A key aim of the strategy is to identify some of the housing challenges that island faces, including the building of new homes, and it identifies the key constraint of a number of corporate priorities, including health and education, being that not enough affordable homes have been built over the last 10 years. Our 2018 needs survey identified that around 222 new affordable homes should be built each year, but few, if any, have been delivered in successive years. Our housing waiting list has been static with around 2,500 island households needing an affordable home at any one time. The lack of new affordable housing supply has disadvantaged many island families and led many others, particularly younger people, to move away to places where wages and housing affordability are better matched. The strategy identifies a number of economic and housing market reasons for this, and has identified through an expertly developed affordability tool that affordable levels for Ireland is around 60% of marketplaces and not the 80% identified by government agencies. And what that actually means is, of a market rent on the island, there are a large number of families can only afford 60% of the market rent. The strategy has an action plan that sets out a number of actions to support the key priorities of the strategy, which are ensuring the right supply, the right mix of new homes, and increasing affordable housing delivery, identifying affordability on the island through detailed and ongoing research of both income and housing costs to inform both planning and housing policy going forward, ensuring that the private housing sector provides enough good quality market housing and, where necessary, robust quality control and regulation, enabling housing associations and our other partners to build more new affordable homes for island residents while maintaining their current homes to a high standard, reducing homelessness and rough sleeping through effective prevention work, and building a new homeless pathway through property solutions and wraparound services. And no doubt Councillor Mosdale might want to speak on that later. Ensuring ensuring the specialist accommodation is available for vulnerable people, including primary extra care housing and older people and people with disabilities. The outcomes of consultations: there is resistance and some concern about new housing building and the need for infrastructure and land use in general. At the same time, respondents to the public consultation felt that the council's approach to provide housing for children, young people, including fostered children, is the correct one. There was also positive agreement that providing extra care accommodation for older people is much needed. There is better news here than the first two, with the first two new extra care schemes providing around 150 new homes for older and disabled residents being delivered this year in Ryde and Freshwater. There are strong public voices to end second home ownership and to prevent luxury homes being built and to stop the perceived influx of retirees from the mainland. This highlights a need to communicate more clearly the limit of the council's legal powers and to intervene in the housing market and restrict individual rights. They also clearly agree that the council approach to addressing the reducing homelessness and want to see the council directly provide affordable housing as opposed to leaving this to the private sector and housing associations. The conclusions: the council does have ambitions to use its own housing company to deliver some of the housing where possible, but is constrained by financing post-pandemic, whilst the strategy recognises that its objectives will only be delivered in partnership. The strategy also sets out approach where housing is not seen solely as a responsibility of the council and the regeneration and planning teams, but also partner departments and organisations taking into account of the important links with social care and health, both at strategic and operational level. This includes working effectively with a range of internal council partners and external stakeholders, including housing associations, Homes England, private developers, landlords and local organisations whose workforces on housing services and issues. The strategy has a detailed action plan that will, when implemented, begin to address some of the housing challenges we face. And tonight, Chairman, the recommendation is that the housing strategy is endorsed for adoption as it is being developed through a comprehensive review of evidence and progress against a range of council strategies and detailed consultation with stakeholders and the public. An adoption of the strategy will allow staff resources to be spent on strengthening the housing partnership across the sector and help the focus on housing delivery. Thank you, Chairman. I move.
You're on mute.
Sorry, thank you very much, Councillor Abraham. I will shortly ask Councillor Mosdell to speak, and she will second the proposal to give us further information, and then I'll make reference to scrutiny and my own comments. Councillor Mosdell.
Thank you. As Cabinet Member for Housing Needs, it will not surprise my Cabinet colleagues that I wish to say a few words of support about this key strategy. Indeed, I think I'm correct in saying that the first new strategy we introduced as an administration with the Islands Extra Care Housing Strategy 2017 to 2032, and Barry and I, Councillor Abraham and I, co-presented it to the Cabinet, and I think it's quite right that we continue that double act tonight. It was Confucius who said the strength of a nation derives from the integrity of the home. Using that definition, our nation's strength is currently depleted. The UK has experienced a housing crisis. There is no other word to describe it. Let me describe it succinctly to you. Across the UK, millions of people are living in substandard, overcrowded accommodation. Many of those people are on council's housing waiting list and have been for years, with no realistic prospect of securing access to social housing. The tragedy of rough sleeping has multiplied before our eyes over the last decade or so, and house prices and rentals are simply unaffordable to many people. Our young people have no option but to stay living at home with their parents. And at the same time, political battles rage over how many houses should be built in any local authority area. comprising of what type of housing and available to whom, with delivery of any new building housing also frequently taking years to come to fruition. This national scenario pertains also to the Isle of Wight, so I regard the 2020-2025 housing strategy as one of the most important that this administration has driven and developed to date. It is one that we have to get right and we have to deliver on. This strategy is evidence-based and sensitive to the conditions and needs of the island and its residents. One size does not fit all, and what might work in Islington will not work on the island. The 6 strategic priorities contained in the strategy are the right ones. I want to talk about 2 in particular: housing supply and homelessness and housing needs. And I will start with housing needs, as this is very much my cabinet portfolio responsibility. As at the end of August 2020, there were 2,120 people on the housing register, and this is actually the lowest number in the last 5 months. 337 of those people were housing needs were classified as band 1 or band 2, meaning severe overcrowding, which by the way is defined as having a shortage of at least 2 bedrooms available and or severe medical or welfare issues. There were 193 households living in temporary accommodation, of whom 36 were living in bed and breakfast accommodation. However, I am especially pleased to tell you this, that no child has lived in bed and breakfast accommodation on this island now for over 10 months. In August alone, 21 households presented to the council and were accepted as being homeless and in priority need. And finally, with regards to this brief statistical tour, between the 1st of April and the end of August this year, the council's brilliant housing needs service prevented 128 people from becoming homeless. So in case there is any doubt out there, the Isle of Wight has experienced a significant and sustained unmet housing need. And you only need to read, as I do, some of the representations that households make to councillors and our MP to understand how lives are being blighted because of that unmet housing need. It is, colleagues, often heartbreaking and a massive frustration that there is not an easy or timely response that we can give. That brings me to the second strategic priority I want to talk about: housing supply. We not only need to get an increase in housing supply delivered, and that includes bringing empty homes into use as well as building new ones, but that increased supply has to be the right type and the right size of housing, as well as being in the right location. I assert knowing full well that I will attract criticism from some quarters that every town and village across the island has to have plans to build new housing and bring existing buildings into housing use so we can maximise all brownfield opportunities. The strategy rightly focuses on the delivery of affordable housing. Specifically in this regard, I draw attention to the last sentence in paragraph 67, 24 new affordable homes in West Wight, attracting 87 qualifying applicants. The opening of the island's first care housing scheme in Ryde will help us meet our affordable housing target of 212 homes, but we need also to ensure that we meet the need for affordable housing for our young people and our families. Accordingly, I especially commend the action set out in paragraphs 89 through to 94. My other point regarding housing supply is that we need to campaign hard about the Isle of Wight being one of the very few areas in the South East region not to qualify for the social housing grant from Homes England, which might support our registered social and other landlords to be able to afford homes at an affordable rent. Finally, as we set out in the recovery and reset from COVID, in any typical economic recovery, a resurgent housing sector needs fuel, employment and raise incomes. As an island, therefore, and to adopt a nautical metaphor, our 2020-25 housing strategy should be our mast and not our anchor, and I am delighted to support it this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mosdor. Members, I should also, I'll just wait for the live. Thank you, Councillor Mosdell. Members, I should also put out the recommendation from scrutiny, and this was that members noted the adoption of the housing scrutiny strategy, and they were fully in support, with an additional recommendation that the formation of a council-owned housing company be brought forward 1 year, and we can obviously look at that. My own comments are that our position is to secure development of affordable housing on the island based on the evidence of need with the support of the community. That is why, for example, we are bringing forward ambitious proposals for Newport Harbour to develop brownfield land in the council's ownership for up to 250 homes, employment space and culture and leisure use. But we must be mindful of local community wishes as well. Following consultation, we acknowledge the local community representation in Newport received through the local ward councillor, Councillor Matt Price, and we now plan to focus on brownfield sites in the harbour and not use the green space at the entrance to Seaclose Park in Fairley Road for housing. I can confirm today that the Cabinet report will be considered at next month's meeting, which will take this on, and part of the plan will be changed accordingly. We want to minimise the development on greenfield sites on the island, and we will only look to do so in exceptional circumstances and with the right environmental approach, such as that approved for the Branston Farm site near Arreton, where we have affordable housing alongside our biosphere centre and employment and jobs. We need the right homes in the right place for the right people, and these are islanders who must be our priority. So I thank you very much for that document, and I look to our members. We have a nominated and seconder. Councillor Abraham, did you want to speak a bit further?
Yeah, so just to make the point, the scrutiny committee, made the recommendation with home. Well, it actually more or less is formed already, and we are having, as we speak, the plans have been drawn up how it will actually operate. And I'll just make the point on the Branston Farm site that for those who might be concerned, it's a greenfield site. Because it's low cost housing, we're working in partnership with the Housing Association, it is a rural exception site.
Thank you for that clarity, much appreciated. So members, we should vote for approval on this particular document. So I would ask you now, I'll call out your names as we go around. Sorry, I'll ask the officer to call out your names as we go round.
Okay, Councillor Abraham.
4.
Councillor Brading.
4.
Councillor Hastings.
4.
Councillor Mosdale.
4.
Councillor Peace.
4.
Councillor Tyndall.
4.
Councillor Hutchinson.
4.
Councillor Ward.
Councillor Ward.
Councillor Ward, who's going to put his microphone on any second.
4.
And Councillor Whittle.
4.
And yourself, Chairman.
Yes, and I'm 4 as well, so that's unanimous.
Yes,
thank
unanimous.
you. I'll move on now to item 6, which is the approval of the public space protection order, and I would ask Councillor Peace, responsible member, to introduce the paper, please.
Thank you, Leader. Am I live? Yeah, okay. So the approval of public spaces protection orders, or PSPOs. These proposals are related to dog and alcohol control, and they mirror the existing orders which are going out of force. So we're not changing anything. There are a small number of additional proposals for controls on dogs in cemeteries, some rights of way, and some minor changes to alcohol control areas, but nothing else. Now, as I say, these public spaces protection orders only replace what we already have in force. They replace designated public place orders, or DPPOs, which relate to antisocial drinking, and they replace dog control orders, or DCOs, which place restrictions on dog walkers in certain locations. The new orders relate to dog fouling, dogs on leads, dog exclusion zones, and areas related to antisocial behaviour drinking. Now, the power to grant these public space protection orders was given to local authorities in Antisocial Behaviour and the Crime and Disorder Act of 2014. The consultation exercise that we've held as a council was actually a really long one. It went for an 18-week period, and it was extended because of the COVID restrictions, and it lasted from the 19th of February until the 30th of June 2020. And actually, it ended up with it's possibly one of the most widely held consultations that we've done on the island. We had 1,127 responses to the online survey, 22 written submissions, and written responses were received from the police, the Kennel Club, Bird Aware Solent, Ventnor Town Council, Knighton and Whitwell Parish Councils. So it really was quite extensive. Now, I've also had some communications since this paper was released, and I just want to go through some of the areas because there seems to be a bit of lack of understanding by some people over what this is all about. As I say, we're changing very, very little. The only new areas are the control of dogs in cemeteries, i.e. what I mean is that those dogs have got to be on leads if you're in a cemetery. That actually received a 95% approval rating. Certain rights of way of dogs on leads have been brought into this paper, and that came after consultation with landloaders to protect livestock. Again, that received an 85% approval. Alcohol control orders in Shanklin actually received a 92% approval rating from those who took part in the survey. Dogs on leads on St Helens Dover and the revetment area, and the car park from the 1st of May to the 30th of September. Now, this was requested by local landowners and actually St Helens Parish Council, and that still received a 75% approval rating. And then lastly, we have ride alcohol control areas to be extended to include the beach, Apley and putt pool. And again, that received a 92% approval. What I can confirm is that there are no new beach areas included. The dog controllers that were enforced previously have simply been migrated over to these new PSPOs. So there is no change. The alcohol control orders, a couple of people mentioned to me that they were a little bit worried about whether this was going to stop people from having a quiet drink on the beach with their loved ones and so on and so forth. Actually, nothing of the sort. It only becomes an offence to continue drinking if you're asked not to by a police officer. So having that drink on the beach is absolutely fine. The only time it will become an issue is if it also includes antisocial behaviour and you've been warned to stop by a police officer. Only then does it become an offence. And lastly, what I would like to say, and this has come about relatively recently from notably Ventnor Town Council, but there's been a few people that have emailed myself, and I know they've emailed the council leader, and it was around whether we could loosen restrictions on dogs on beaches. We are a tourist isle. We have a huge number of people coming here, and especially in the event of COVID, people aren't going abroad, so they're more likely to stay at home and stay in the UK, and they want to bring their dogs. I'm really sympathetic to this. I know there have been other studies done in, for example, Cornwall, where they've opened up their beaches to dogs throughout the year. So I'm quite relaxed about also looking at possibly loosening up on these restrictions. So what I would like to say is that I'd like approval to go with the recommendation to approve these new PSPOs, which at the end of the day we still need because we need to replace the existing legislation. But I want to make a commitment here and now that we seek views from, for example, the town and parish councils as to whether we can do something differently with allowing dogs on beaches throughout an extended period of time throughout the year. And I would suggest that why don't we can start this now and run through the winter period. It seems like the ideal time to do this so that we can be in a fit and proper place come the new season in the summertime. Thank you, Leader.
You're on mute again, Dave.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Gary, for that. I'm looking for a second. I saw Councillor Mosdell. Did you want to speak to it as well?
Yes, I think Councillor Brading, did you want to go before me?
Sorry, there is one thing I've forgotten to add. One of the other restrictions was not allowing dogs into fenced off playgrounds, which again I think is right and proper. I used to do it myself with my own children. So, you know, the dog would stay outside and you allowed your kids to play in the playground in a small fenced off area, knowing that they're completely safe and healthy. Thank you.
Well, I saw Councillor Brading's thumb up. That's probably what he wanted to say.
I'd like to speak, please. Yeah.
Yes, carry on. Just wait for a few seconds to go live. So Councillor Brading is going to speak. Now you're live now.
Thank you, Leader. I'd like to thank Councillor Peace, first of all, for this thorough piece of work. Having been involved in several consultations during this administration, I know how hard it is to get such decent numbers filling in a consultation. So I think the 18-week period was appropriate. As Councillor Peace said, this is an amalgamation of the existing orders that we have in place, primarily with a couple of minor changes. I fully support dogs needed to be on leads in cemeteries. I think that's a respectful action to put in place. I have wrestled a bit with the children's play areas one. I've read the 69 comments that we received, and if a mother or father takes their child and the dog to the play park, you know, I think it's difficult to leave the dog outside, and that may prevent the child using the play park. But on the flip side of that, I wouldn't like I wouldn't like my grandchild to play in a play park where, you know, there's dog mess or dog wee on the floor. So it's been a difficult one. I've read all the comments, but having said that, 93% of people said the answer to the question was no, they didn't want dogs in children's play parks. So being respectful of 93%, I will be happy to support this policy in full. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. That's very clearly explained. And I assume Councillor Mosdell, did you wish to speak now? Wait for a few seconds just to let it come live. You're live.
Thank you. Myself, like Councillor Brading, struggled with the dogs not being allowed in children's play areas. And then after putting some thought to it, actually, if I was going to the play park with my granddaughter, for example, in Bigmead in Shanklin, near where we live, I would be happier, I think, keeping my dog outside the playground for the protection of my dog. I know my granddaughter is really good with my dogs, but you don't know what other children are like with dogs. And if a dog is pulled or, you know, messed about with by a child and that child is bitten by a dog, that dog has to be put to sleep. So actually, I think it's quite sensible to keep the dogs the other side of the playground and not in a play area. And also, like Councillor Brading, I really don't like the idea of thinking that, you know, my granddaughter might be running through dog wee or dog doo-doo. You know, that's what you say when you're a grandparent. And while I'm at it, congratulations to Councillor Brading, who became a grandparent for the first time this week, who is grinning like a Cheshire cat and hasn't stopped grinning ever since the birth of his granddaughter.
Thank you. Can I ask for a second? Sorry, Councillor Mosdell, Councillor Whittle, do you want to speak? Just give a few seconds while they go live on you. You're now live, Wayne.
Yes, I just want to speak on the issue about changing the existing order. Many residents involved with dogs know that I fought the order to be changed to no dogs allowed on the beach at all in Ryde, other than the other side of Apley Tower, because we've got such a vast expanse of sand in Ryde when the tide's out, that we come to the conclusion that it was best to leave it that dogs could go on the wet sand, although only access and the sand and leave the sand on the other side of Apley Tower towards Seaview. However, in the summer, they're allowed on the sand, only the wet sand. They can only get on and off the other side of Apley Tower, and they're kept off of the dry sand because Ryde has a lot of dry sand that never sees the tide. So if a dog defecates on the beach, on the dry sand, then you'll get a child playing, making sandcastles on the same sand. And I would object strongly to removing the no dogs on the dry sand on Ryde Beach in the summer when we have tourism, because as you say, tourism is an important factor to our island. But I think in the safety of children playing in the dry sand that never sees the tide, so it never gets cleaned other than the rain, I think it's only right and proper that we have a shared access during the summer where dogs can go on the wet sand, but they cannot go on the dry sand on any beach other than the dog beach to the east of Ackley Tower. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you for that comprehensive explanation. Councillor Hastings, I think you want to speak. Again, just give it a couple of seconds while we make you go live, if that's the right phrase. You're now live.
Okay, thank you, Leader. Yeah, as the other councillor named on this recommendation, I thought I should say something, and most of what I would say has already been said by Councillor Peace, so I echo what he has said. When it comes to dogs, I'd just like to make a comment, and that is, in my opinion, there is no such thing as a bad dog. There are just some bad owners. And if they get themselves and their dogs trained and do the right thing, there's never a problem, but some obviously don't. And there was a large response to this consultation, and the percentages of approval were very high. So I'm happy to second it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was going to ask that, and I'm grateful. So the recommendation we're now going to be asked to vote on is option 1, that says the Cabinet approves the Isle of Wight Council Public Spaces Protection Order as contained at Appendix 11 of this report. And I'll just remind Cabinet that the order and the recommendation was fully supported by scrutiny. So on that basis, I'll ask the officer to call a vote, please.
Councillor Abraham.
For.
Councillor Brading.
For.
Councillor Hastings.
For.
Councillor Hutchinson.
For.
Councillor Mosdale.
For.
Councillor Peace.
For.
Councillor Tyndall.
For.
Councillor Ward.
For.
Councillor Whittle.
For.
And yourself, Chairman.
For.
That's unanimous.
Thank you, officer. So that's good. Thank you very much, members. We now move on to item 7. This paper's been circulated. We're not making a decision as such on this today. This is the revision to the Isle of Wight Council's constitution. It's a very comprehensive document, and I would just at the outset thank our monitoring officer, Jeff Wild, for the very comprehensive work he's done in bringing this forward. And I'm sure in November, full council will acknowledge their appreciation as well. What we're being asked to do is just to note the report at this stage. We'll come back full cabinet in November, and also a scrutiny committee who noted the report and indicated that they would welcome an opportunity to comment on it before cabinet consideration in November. And they've asked for an informal meeting to be arranged, which we can do, and that will involve corporate scrutiny and the chairs of the policy and scrutiny committees. So we're getting a full coverage, and frankly, members will be able to comment if they haven't already done so. It's really important, I think, on constitutional matters that everybody has their say, and even small amendments will have an impact. So that's a proposal that is there. I don't propose to go through the document in detail today. I just ask that unless anybody wishes to speak on it today, we note the constitutional report as it stands, and I will bring it back again in November for cabinet. Are you happy with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm seeing nods of approval. Thank you very much. So I'm now going to move to item 8. Item 8 is cabinet member announcements. Not compulsory, but if you do have something which will be informative to the cabinet or to the public, I invite you to do so. I'll now pass down through the cabinet, starting with Councillor Hutchinson, Deputy Leader.
Right. Thank you, Leader. I'll just wait until...
Yeah, a few seconds.
Yep.
You're now live. Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Couple of points. The first one is to do with our COVID management, and to say to cabinet, some cabinet members were present, of course, but we had the first public meeting this morning of the local outbreak engagement board, and we were presented with very full and detailed reports from our Director of Public Health, Simon Bryant, and our Assistant Chief Executive, Wendy Pereira. What that showed was that a huge amount of work is being done in the background to make sure that this island stays safe and well, and that we have plenty of capacity in our medical services to deal with any second spike. As we all know, there are varying reactions from around the country to the changed circumstances, with some parts of the country being in semi-lockdown. I'm absolutely delighted that here on the island, because everyone is taking this really seriously, incidence is still one of the very lowest in the country, and we aim to keep it that way. So that was good news from that. The local outbreak engagement board will be meeting in public once every month, and we will be giving updates following that, and obviously press releases and information in between times. The other thing that I'd just like to briefly comment on is our overall budget position. In our current budget, where people will know that we had a widely quoted £10 million black hole, and we have been working hard to actually reduce that, and it's now down to around 8 million, and we are on target to bring the budget into balance by the end of the year. That's really important, because if we end up at the end of the year with an overspend, that gives us severe problems for the following year. But I think we'll be able to meet that target. As Cabinet members will also know, but it's worth stating publicly, we have already started on the preparation of next year's budget. I don't need to remind everyone as to how challenging that will be. Fortunately, over the last 4 budgets that we have done as an administration, we've been able to bolster our reserves, and that's been enormously useful in carrying us through this incredibly difficult period. So that's not to underestimate how difficult it is going to be. We will need some government support. We won't know what that will be until probably around Christmas time. And I know we shall be asked by members and others as to when we will be able to announce the kind of issues that we'll be facing in next year's budget. And it's worthwhile saying at this early stage that because of those unknowns, which are at least as great as last year, we shan't be able to make any serious announcements before about Christmas time. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Stuart, and thank you for the work covering those 2 key areas you're operating on. I'll just go through names now. Councillor Tyndall, did you have anything you want to add at this stage? You're live now.
I think Councillor Atkinson set out what our problems are very, very well, and I have nothing to add to that.
Thank you, and thank you for all the work I know you've been doing, engaging with officers. You've only been with us for a few short weeks, but I know you've already embedded yourself into that role, and that is certainly freeing up Councillor Hutchinson to focus on COVID-19 and the strategic budget. So thank you for your work. Councillor Peace, anything you want to add to what's been said so far?
Nothing from me, Leader.
Thank you, Gary, for the work you're doing on the community safety aspect, which is important. Councillor Brading.
Thank you, Leader. Whoops. Am I
You're live now.
Okay,
yeah, live
I'd just like to take the opportunity of sharing with you some bits of data, and then one other issue I'd just like to cover off. First, I'd just like to talk about attendance data in the schools. This data is as at Tuesday, the 6th of October. The attendance in primary schools nationally is 93%. The Isle of Wight is at 97%. And also in primary, 95% of our educational health care plan children in primary sector are in, and 75% of children known to social care are in school. At the secondary level, nationally 87% of pupils are in school. We're at 91% on the island, and of our educational health care plan children, 80% are in school, and our social care known children, 76% are in school. So we're in a great position. We're about 4% above national school attendance. That figure doesn't include children that are currently being home educated due to their lockdown of a bubble at their school. So there are still some children at Christ the King's, obviously, that were still off school at the moment. But that puts us in a really strong position. Our pupils are really glad to be back at school, and our schools do a great job at welcoming them back in. Coming on to the early years provision. Early years is nursery schools and childminder settings. 51 of our 52 settings are open, and of our childminder settings, 38 of 41 offerings are up and running. And the interesting thing, the children in attendance at those early years settings is 1,688, which is up from this time last year, 1,679. So it's good to have that number going upwards, because that obviously will feed through to our primary sector in a few years' time. Finally, the educational health and care plan is a very interesting statistic, in so much as the government guidelines states that all EHCPs should be completed within a 20-day period. Now, that's not always easy to achieve 100% of this, because obviously the data fed into this comes from schools, from doctors, from professionals, from parents. Nationally, 60%, year to date this is, right through COVID, 60% of care plans nationally are completed on time. We're at 83%. So it's a phenomenal effort by our team to get these plans done on time. I just wondered if you indulge me with 2 or 3 minutes, I want to talk about the government Kickstart programme. It's a very important thing. So Kickstart scheme is from the government providing funding to employers to create job placements for young people aged 16 to 24. The scheme provides funding to employers to create new 6-month job placements for young people who are currently on universal credit and at risk of long-term unemployment. These placements are for new roles for job-ready individuals and are a great and real opportunity. Having to create job opportunities is an important priority, and we are doing everything we can to reduce the impacts of COVID-19. With up to 1,000 young people in this age group registered as unemployed, as many companies as possible are needed to offer placements. Now, this is very much part of the government's plan for jobs, and aims to create hundreds and thousands of new jobs fully funded across England, Scotland and Wales. First payments are likely to be available from somewhere in November. The funding will cover each job placement is really in the following form: 100% of the relevant national minimum wage for 25 hours a week, the associated national insurance contributions, and employer minimum automatic enrolment contributions. Funding is available following a successful application process to the DWP, Department of Work and Pensions. Applications must be for a minimum of 30 job placements. If unable to have that many job placements, obviously the Isle of Wight will find this a little bit more difficult. It's about finding someone to act as intermediary on behalf of a group of employers to reach that minimum number. So as I said, any employers planning to offer more than 30 posts can apply directly for a scheme. Anyone with less than that can join with a consortium as an intermediary when the Chamber of Commerce are helping us to put this all together. So these intermediaries will gather information from employers about job placements they would like to offer, use information to submit an online application on behalf of that group of employers, and pass all the relevant information for payments to the DWP, obviously for young people's salaries. They may also share their expertise with us to help onboard and train new young people employed through the scheme, especially those with any particular disadvantages in the working sector, and provide employability support directly to young people employed through the scheme. As an Isle of Wight Council, we've agreed to control the scheme ourselves across the whole island to ensure we get the best outcomes we can for our young people. So we will look to shape the offering with focus on key sectors of employment on the island, which we identified. We've had extensive conversations with the Chamber of Commerce, who along with ourselves via our apprenticeship board will act as the island intermediaries. Very encouraging, the partners already have expressions of interest for over 140 organisations on the island keen to get involved in Kickstart. So it's a really good start. The project itself is being coordinated by our Director of Regeneration, Chris Ashman, who I know is on the call. Chris is also leading the Island Recovery Strategy as well as chairing the Apprenticeship Board. So it's very much a coordinated approach under Chris's control. We've also engaged with our Island Futures team and our Island Careers Partnership, who's done a phenomenal amount of work recently putting together these pieces to ensure that we really effectively link our young people properly with these businesses. Local town and parish councils are being invited to offer their support to this holistic Isle of Wight approach, bringing their contacts with local businesses to our attention. I very much encourage them to do this rather than try and do their own thing and set up their own schemes locally, which would not be entirely inclusive or very helpful and could cause duplication, which we're trying to avoid. So town and parish councils, we wish to come on board with the holistic approach we're adopting. This will then ensure that the scheme is correctly managed and properly coordinated, and therefore opportunities across the whole island will not be missed, but instead be maximised. So in conclusion, I very much welcome this fantastic government initiative as a council, and will ensure we maximise this opportunity for our young people. Thank you. You're muted, Dave, I think.
Councillor Brading, thank you very much for that comment. I'm particularly interested in that work on Kickstart for reasons I'll mention at the end of this particular item. Councillor Mosdell, is there anything you wish to add?
No, I'm fine, thank you. I'm just
Thank
sat here
you.
wincing with my trapped nerve.
Okay. Councillor Whittle, is there anything you wish to add?
Yes, thank you, Leader. We discussed that scheme today, Paul, and it's very interesting, and it's good work by the Chamber to enable smaller businesses to take part in that scheme. On economic recovery, Pop-Up Business School will be running from the 12th to the 23rd of October. It's co-financed with Southern Housing. Over 140 people already registered for virtual school, providing new business startup advice for unemployed, following the successful event that we had last year. There's also the Island gift card, thanks to sponsorship, to be launched in the run-up to Christmas, providing the opportunity for islanders to commit planned Christmas spending to island businesses through the island's first law gift card scheme. More details will follow soon. There's also the Island Business Advisors, working with Chamber of Commerce. 2 new advisors starting this month to support businesses in recovering from the COVID impacts. And then there's the Let's Buy Local scheme, which is extending the summer campaign to run until Christmas, with a focus on high streets and potential development of an indoor Christmas market in Newport for island producers. So there's quite a few things going on, and we're putting as many things in place as we can to keep jobs and create new jobs and retrain our workforce on the island. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Wayne, for that. Councillor Ward, anything you wanted to add?
No, nothing from me, Leader. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Abraham, anything you wish to add?
Yes, Leader. I just wanted to bring to the attention that we had the government white paper today that the MP actually raised in the House and led on the debate on the housing numbers that were proposed. We have put in, and it had to be in by the 1st of October, on the numbers of the houses. We've now delivered that to government, our objections to the proposed numbers of 1,045 houses per unit that they wanted us to deliver. They weren't the type of houses that we talked about in the housing strategy. And also we are consulting at the moment on the how we should respond to the wider aspect of the white paper, and how or where development will be able to take place. Clearly, we are looking at our local development plan at the moment to reduce an island number of houses that we can actually deliver. And as I've said before, one of my prime concerns of our local development framework that we've got on the island is the policy that is in place that we can build outside the development envelope, which I would hope that we can actually not use in the future. Thank you, Leader.
Yeah, thank you very much, Barry. And you're absolutely right. Our MP did appear in the House of Commons to talk about this specific issue, and he also mentioned to the members in the House that he was working at one with us, which is absolutely right. We all agree that the housing numbers that this white paper would drop on the island is just not acceptable. We're never going to hit them or deliver them anyway. And as you say, and thank you for the work you've done to present an evidence-based option to government, which you submitted in time at the beginning of the month. So we await the response to that. And as you also said to us earlier, that you're now working on the wider white paper response, which is due at the end of the month. So thank you very much. And thank you to the officers that are doing that. It's our job to protect the island, not only for the right jobs and the right buildings, but also to make sure we don't put ourselves in an impossible situation, which we just can't deliver on anyway. So thank you for that. Finally, Councillor Hastings. Wait to go live. You're live.
I'm live, yes. Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I would like to make an announcement actually now, hot off the press, and thanks to some good work done by our officers, where they've achieved our Island Green Homes grant, £500,000 grant, and one of the first in the country to achieve getting this grant. It is very timely as we're coming into winter and heating going on. This will be a great help with fuel poverty and will create jobs. This also fits in with our climate emergency strategy, as 32% of our carbon use each year is in domestic properties. And this is better than the utility project that's been going on over a period of time, where they've been doing loft and cavity wall insulation to reach their carbon emission reductions targets, because it takes in also, you can get solid wall, cavity wall, underfloor heating, roof insulation, air or ground source heat pumps, solar thermal solutions, double glazing, secondary glazing, hot water tank appliance, tank insulation, thermostats, heating controls, etc. So it doesn't just restrict to one or two items, it's the whole shooting match across the board. And eligibility and how to apply will go out in a press release next week. And I think this is very exciting and very timely. And as I say, it's good with winter coming on, and will help with hard up people with regards to energy, etc. And also will help with jobs, because it will create jobs as well. So part of COVID recovery.
Thank you, Steve. So thanks to Councillor Hastings and through you, the officers, for what is another pioneering and innovative outcome for this island ahead of the rest of the country. Councillor Mosdell, I can see your hand up.
Yeah,
Just
thank
wait
you.
a few seconds. You go live. You're live now.
Thank you. And yes, that is exciting, but a scheme is only really as good as the effort that's put in to ensure that people can actually have the work done. So can I suggest that we not only list on our council website who is eligible and how to apply, but also work with companies on the island who can actually provide the service and look at what companies are recommended to be able to do that. It's all very well to apply to have some, different work done on your house, but actually, if there are companies on the island who aren't actually carrying out the work, then we need to put that together. So we need to put, make it as seamless as possible and easy for people to apply, and easy for companies to be able to know that they have their assurance of doing that work as well.
Thank you. That's a very fair point you make. So members, we've just heard from a number of our cabinet members, and I've heard the same in the last month, of the work you're doing with officers to deliver for this island. And this shows the strong leadership that this administration and this cabinet has delivered. We're now in the fourth year of our administration, and this is all good stuff that we're doing. Apart from as well, remembering that we've kept this council sustainable financially for the last 4 years as well. Some who thought that couldn't be done, and here we are now. But the job is not over, because we all know that apart from keeping our community safe through COVID, we are all facing this tremendous problem of unemployment. And you've all given good examples. Councillor Bradings is the most recent example that we've had of how, if we're going to do an economic recovery, we've got to help the unemployed. So our energy now will work towards that. It's an emerging challenge. As Councillor Brading also said, we need town and parish councils to work with us as a team on these issues, and I fully support that. But I do thank you all at the moment and ask you just to keep going, because I think the island knows that we're going to have difficult times. It's going to be bumpy times ahead, and our job as a council is to help people through that till we can get to the spring, where we've got a lot of other good things coming on. So I'm grateful to you all for that. And I'm now going to move to item 9, which is the forward plan. And just for information, I note that we have the healthy weight strategy, which Councillor Mosder will be bringing forward. It's moving to January, so it's given me a little bit of time to get on board with that one. We have the paper relating to the appointment of the role of leader to the new fire authority, which will be brought forward in November, and that links in with the fire service review on COVID. We have the Forest Road, White House Road junction coming forward, which Councillor Ward will be dealing with. Then we have the Newport Harbour master plan, of which a lot of work has gone in. I thank Chris Ashman for that, and that will be dealt with by Councillor Whittle and Councillor Abraham. We have the quarterly performance update, which Councillor Tyndall is already excited about and has been working very hard to get into, and I'm sure he'll do a good job. And then we have the approval of the revised constitution, and I do thank Jeff Wild, who's on this call, for the work he's done, and that will come through under my name at the next meeting. So that's a great deal of work yet to be done. So that's an update on the forward plan. I'm now going to move to members' questions. Now we have 2 questions. The first one is from Councillor Love. I'm just going to check with the officer. Are we in a position where Councillor Love can read his own question, or do you need me to read it?
It's up to you, Chairman. If you want Councillor Love to read his question, he can, or if he's happy for you to read it, you can read it.
Well, Councillor Love, if you're able to hear me, I'm quite happy for you to read your question as it's yours, and then I'll ask Councillor Whittle to respond.
Thank you very much. I'd like to read my question, if that's okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So, question to Cabinet. Meetings have been taking place all summer between myself, the ward councillor, Chris Ashman, Regeneration Officer of Isle of Wight Council, Stephen Ashman of Island Roads, to implement a community regeneration project to improve elements of the East Cowes Esplanade landslip, in firstly removing the unsightly fencing and replacing it with gabions. When will Isle of Wight Council grant permission for us to proceed restoring our esplanade built during the Great Depression of the 1930s by the very proud people and shipbuilders of East Cowes? Several communications have been sent to the Cabinet Member for Transport and Infrastructure over this year and summer. Thank you for responding there. We will require permission to proceed with this project, and we will do that safely in partnership with our townspeople and Island Roads. We cannot proceed in raising the funds and undertaking the project work under the supervision of Island Roads without the consent of Isle of Wight Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Love, for clearly reading out your question. I appreciate that. I will invite Councillor Whittle to respond on behalf of the council.
Yes, I'm here. I'm just waiting for the camera.
Yeah, that's fine. You're now live.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Love. Obviously, we discussed this, which is why I'm answering you. I inquired on your behalf, and I can confirm to you that the council, as both highway and planning authority, would not object in principle to works to improve East Cowes Esplanade. But as yet, no detailed plans have been provided for consideration. As soon as these are submitted for consideration, a fuller response will be available to yourself, Carl. So if you could get some plans in to the Isle of Wight Council as the Highways and Planning Authority, then it can be considered what you want to do as the East Cowes Town Council. Thank you, Councillor Love.
So thank you, Councillor Love, for your question, and I hope that answer it gives you the indication that it's probably going to receive a positive response if all things are there. So that's good. I'm now going to move to a question from Councillor Garrett. I don't know if Councillor Garrett is on the call.
I did only get a tentative acceptance, and I can't see his name there, so I don't believe he is.
Okay, I'll quite happily read out his question anyway. What Councillor Garrett said is, since his response to my question to him at the Cabinet meeting of the 10th of September, and this is to Councillor Ward, what further issues have been raised with the Cabinet member for infrastructure and transport relating to the construction of the new St Mary's Road junction? What personal view has he taken on them, and what steer, if any, has he given to officers in responding to them? The second part was, how many abandoned vehicle reports are currently being addressed, and of these, how many are waiting for information on their registered keepers from the DVLA, and what is the longest period for which such information has been waited amongst these reports? So, Councillor Ward, if you can give a best you can response to those 2 points, and anything else we'll deal with by written reply.
Okay, thank you, Leader. I have received 44 messages about the construction of St Mary's Junction. The main themes of the messages were the length of traffic tailbacks and the reason for its construction. As the junction is under construction, tailbacks are inevitable. However, from personal experience, the length of tailback are influenced by the time of the day, with rush hours producing the longest, and other times there are no tailbacks at all. What I do note is the time it takes to pass through the works is generally in line with or shorter than the predicted average of 15 minutes. And I actually drove all three approach routes yesterday, and I appreciate it's the time of day as well, but Forest Road took me 5 minutes to clear the tailback, Cowes 6 minutes, and the Medina Way 7 minutes. So yeah, while the tailbacks may be long, they are moving constantly. So that's one. The other point of what we've done about it, at the last project board meeting, I raised the issue of trying to address the residents' awareness of the project progress. So it was decided that more frequent updates about the progress and predicted difficulties of the construction phases would be issued. The first of which was in the county press last week.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. And I'll ask the question that hasn't been asked. How is the St Mary's works progressing, and are we on track?
We very much on track, and barring unexpected problems, we may even finish before the projected time.
Thank you. That'll be a nice Christmas present for the island. Okay, thank you. Any other comment, Councillor Mosdell? I just see your hand up there.
Sorry, Chairman, did you want Councillor Ward to answer the question from Councillor Garrett about the abandoned vehicles as well?
I've got that as well anyway.
I'm sorry, I didn't know you had that. I'll go back to you, Councillor Ward. My apologies. If you just wait to go live and then deal with that, that'll be helpful. Thank you. You're live now.
Okay. Do you have his question? Do you want me to read his question?
Yeah, I don't have his question other than what I read earlier, I think.
I'll do both.
Thank you.
Find it. Right. Question 2. During lockdown, the DVLA withdrew a number of non-essential services, which included providing a manual process for obtaining registered keeper details in relation to abandoned vehicles. I'm sorry. That was my. I'll read the question. How many abandoned vehicle reports are currently being addressed? Of these, how many are waiting for information on their registration about the registered keepers from the DVLA? And what is the longest period for which such information have been weighted for among these reports? Right, the answer. During lockdown, the DVLA withdrew a number of non-essential services, which included providing a manual process for obtaining registered keepers' details in relation to abandoned vehicles. There are currently 126 abandoned vehicle queries being addressed. This figure represents approximately 8 weeks of inquiries. Due to the process of contracting the registered keeper, we usually aim to resolve abandoned vehicle cases within 6 weeks, which suggests we are 2 or 3 weeks behind. It should be noticed that approximately only 7% of vehicles reported are actually declared abandoned. 42 abandoned vehicle inquiries are currently with the DVLA. This would indicate that the DVLA is approximately 2 to 3 weeks behind, as I've said before, on clearing the backlog. Between 10 and 15 are sent weekly, and we usually receive them back within a week. But as I said, we have a backlog, or DVLA have a backlog of about 2 to 3 weeks. As per the above, the longest period of wait is not considered to be representative of the overall performance, as the DVLA issues are typically creating the 2 to 3 week delay that I report.
Thank you. And I've got 2 comments to come, one from Councillor Hastings and one from Councillor Mosdell. I'll go to Councillor Mosdell first. Saw her hand first.
Mine's not a comment on this, so I'll go after Councillor Hastings.
Okay. Then, Officer, we'll go to Councillor Hastings now. If you could put him live, please. And then I'll go back to Councillor Mosdell. So sorry about that. You can just wait till you go live, Steve.
Yeah.
Thank you. You're live.
Thank you. I have to comment on this matter because I've had a number of abandoned vehicles I've had to deal with. I have one presently in my ward at Brook. The car is beaten up down the side, it has a wing mirror's broken off, a smashed window at the rear, and it's sat right on the paving. And one of the residents has a mobility scooter, so can't go down the paving anymore, has to go into the road. Now, I have done the right thing, which is contact Island Roads and ask for them to deal with it. And quite rightly, they've come back to say they first of all have to locate the owner of the vehicle before they can do anything. That's fair. Well, they've not come, but what I've been dealing with this since about August, and it turns out when I finally got to speak to the resident, the owner of the house, that they've been dealing with Island Roads as well since April. So this vehicle that's clearly abandoned, I mean, no matter how you look at it, it's an abandoned vehicle, is just sat there and nobody can do anything with it because of the situation with DVLA. Well, if DVLA have problems due to COVID and lack of staff or whatever, my reasoning and my suggestion, and I would hope that Cabinet could do something in policy to sort this, is that when we have such abandoned vehicles, we should uplift them, take them to a pound, to somewhere safe, then look to locate the owner. If we then locate the owner and they do still want their vehicle and they happen to owe money for road tax or whatever, it can be collected before they take their vehicle. But we should not have to leave these vehicles laying around on our streets and in people's way when we could simply uplift them. Thank you, Lee.
Yeah, thank you for that, Steve. And I in my mind came the vehicle and caravan that had been clearly abandoned near the junction at between Godsill Shanklin. I don't know if you know that, and there's I don't even think it's got a registration plate on it actually. And I think I agree with you. There've been others, and maybe then we can look at something there, Councillor Ward, where we could bring a policy forward that says to the public, if you abandon your vehicles in this way, we will pound them, and then you will have to pay for the pounding. And I think most of the public would agree that's the right way, because it's a blight on what is otherwise, you know, a wonderful island. Councillor Mosdell, I'm over to you, and I'm probably encroaching on your ward. I'm not sure.
Yes, that vehicle is in my ward, and I've been trying for ages to get rid of it and have lots of complaints about it. basically, before we left this meeting, I would just like from all of the Cabinet to wish Dr. Tozer huge luck with her operation. We won't be seeing her again for a while because she is, as you know, going to have major surgery, but absolute assurance. We have sent an email out today to most of our independent providers to let them know what we are doing, you know, and who is going to be stepping into her shoes. As we know, they are metaphorically very big shoes to fill. But from all of the Cabinet, Dr. Tozer, we cannot thank you enough for what you have done for adult social care, housing and homelessness over the last 3 years. You have been an absolute breath of fresh air and inspiration to the whole of this council, and we look forward to you coming back after your safe operation and your hopefully speedy recovery. You have put adult social care on the Isle of Wight on the national map. And that is something I think when I was first elected, one, I didn't think I would, you know, be working with someone like yourself. And I'm really grateful for everything you do. But as I said, from the whole Cabinet, we wish you luck. We really look forward to your safe return. And we look forward to working with Laura and Ian while you're off. Thank you.
I think it's very appropriate. Thank you very much for that. And Carol, get back soon because we've got lots of work for you to do. All right, that's good. Okay, members, we've come to the end of the Cabinet. So I'm sure we're 15 minutes longer than I expected, but we've covered quite a range of areas, and it's always difficult with the virtual Cabinet. And I'm sure in time we'll get back to the facial Cabinet. But at the moment, thank you very much. And also I extend my thanks to members of the public who have listened in, and we hope you found it informative. And on that basis, I will now draw the meeting to a close.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Leader.